Welcome to Buddhist View podcast. I am very pleased to be here to interview my very good friend Shiriin, and she knows a little bit about the Boudha Stupa, the history and the community of different communities of people who live here. So I thought it would be very nice to pick her brain, and she has agreed, fortunately. So thank you very much, Shiriin, for your time. So I guess to start, maybe we can follow some loosely chronological order. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the stupa, like how
Sure.
stupa came about.
Yeah, so there are different histories from different communities.
And I'm sorry, just so everybody knows, we're speaking about the Boudha Stupa
Yeah.
in Nepal. So there is the three great stupas of Kathmandu. And during this conversation, we'll focus on the Boudha Stupa. So, now.
Yeah,
Yes.
so there are the different communities who claim like the origins of the stupa. And the first one, if we look at the history, then we would say that the Newar story is the eldest. And so from the Gopalraj Vamshavali, which is dated to 14th century, is the first written source that has this story. And then the name of the kings are not fixed, depending on what you read. And basically, there was a drought and there was all these terrible things happening in the country. So the king asked the gods what he should do. And the gods said, well, you have to kill the most, I can't even remember the word now. To kill the best man in the land. So the best man in the land, the king realizes is in himself. So he has to figure out a way to do this. So he tells his son, tomorrow you have to come to a specific place and there will be a person sleeping there, and then you should just kill him. Don't hesitate, just kill him. So then, of course, the prince comes in the morning and he sees the man sleeping there and he beheads him. And of course, as the head rolls away, he sees that it's his father. And he's absolutely distraught. He's shocked. He's sad. And the story says somehow from here he runs to Sanku, and he's at what is now the Vajrayogini, and he prays to the goddess. What should I do? What have I done? I've killed my father. This is a terrible thing, obviously. And she is the one who tells him that he should build a stupa. But when you look at the dates and when you look at the names of the kings, they don't match up. So sometimes people attribute this to Manadev, and some people attribute to Shivadev. And then the story says...
I'm sorry, this is the name of the king?
This is the name of the Lichavi kings.
Lichavi kings.
The Lichavi kings. So...
And this is around 5th century?
5th, 6th century. But like we say, it's not 100% fixed. And then there are different explanations for the name. So for the Newars, they call it Kasti Chaitya. So some people say this Kasti refers to they needed water to do the construction, and there was a drought going on, right? So they would lay cloths on the ground at night, and then the dew from the overnight dew would collect, and they would wring it out, and they would get water like that. And some people say, no, it's an overnight stop, and they try and explain the etymology that this is an overnight stop when you're traveling from Kathmandu to Tibet. But of course, even in those days, Kathmandu and to Boudha is not one day's full walk, so that doesn't seem to be a natural explanation, but doesn't matter. But then the next main person is from the Tibetan history, is Ngakchang Shakya Zangpo from the 16th century, and he was working on a revelation of Samye, and he discovered a terma in 1512. And in this term, it has the legend of the great stupa of Jaran Kashur. And in this text, it tells the story of Boudha, and it goes back and forward in time. So it has Guru Rinpoche is talking to Trisong Detsen, and he's telling him, oh, we've already met. And actually, we were brothers in a previous life. And, and we were brothers in a previous life. And... So this is the Jatsima story, the poultry keeper. She has 3 sons or 4 sons, depending on which version you read, from different husbands. One's a poultry keeper, one's a pig keeper. I can't remember what the other 2 are. And so she decides, well, my life has been happy and successful, and I have my grown-up sons, and I want to do something good. So she decides to build a stupa. And she needs land, so she goes to the king and she requests from the king, "Oh, can I have land to build a stupa?" And he's like, "Okay, what is this poor woman going to be able to build? Okay, fine, sure, you can build a stupa." And so people again try to explain the etymology of Jarong Kasho, which is the Tibetan name for Boudha, saying that these are the words that fell from the king's mouth. But obviously anybody who understands Tibetan knows Jarong Kasho doesn't fit that nicely. It's not a nice, easy, comfortable explanation for that. So then she builds the stupa, and the three sons later, according to the termas, turn out to be Guru Rinpoche, Trisong Detsun, and Shantaraksita. And so Guru Rinpoche has explained that, oh, we've already met in a previous life. So this gives them a connection to the place.
Who are the three masters who established
Khenlop Chosum,
Buddhism in Tibet.
Again, according to the reductionist history of Buddhism arriving in Tibet. So Ngakchang Shakya Sangha finds this terma, and he is interested in the stupa, and he comes to look for it. And of course, he comes from Tibet, and he comes to the Kathmandu Valley in search of this thing, and he can't find it. So if there was a stupa constructed by the Newars, it was already in ruins. He couldn't identify it. And the history says that, in the beginning he sees one mound, and he thinks that's a stupa and that's not the right one. And then he finds the right one. And then he rebuilds it.
How did Ngakchang Sakya Zangpo traveled from Tibet to Nepal?
So some people have written about it. I can't remember the details. I think Frans Karl Hart has written about it, and Ben Bogen has written about it. So you're welcome to go and read those, and I can give you links or references to those as well if you want.
So can you tell us a little bit about this Lama Ngakchang Sakya Zangpo? It seems that he's the one who built the stupa in the shape that we see it nowadays.
It's assumed that that's the case. Because if he hadn't built it with the three plinths so wide, then the houses would have been closer. So it doesn't make any sense that he built it smaller. So even obviously before photography, but sketches and paintings. And there's another completely other story about the stupas in Bhutan and Tawang. When those people came...
The replicas, right?
The replicas, yeah. So when those... Do you want to divert to that?
Not yet.
Yes, so in that story, they also carved it with the plinths. Their model that they took home with them included the plinths. So we assume that that's what he must have built in the 14th century, or 16th century. Sorry, apologies, 16th century.
How did he come from Tibet?
I don't know how he came from Tibet, but at least two other people have written about it based on his biographies. So you can read Frans Karl Erhardt, and I think Alex von Rospat has also written a short thing about the stupa from the Yolmo Tulku perspective, and Ben Bogen. But we can share those afterwards.
And can you briefly mention about the replicas
since we're here now?
Yeah.
So when according to the standard Tibetan history. After Lang Dama was assassinated, Buddhism in Tibet was a little rocky, and people were not able to travel for pilgrimage and studies in the way they had been before because it was unsafe. And so a lot of sites, including original Buddhist sites in India, were translocated to other places. And for that, read Tony Hoover, wrote a very, very good book about that. But one of them was Boudha. So different people came to Boudha and then wanted to replicate Boudha where they lived so that people wouldn't have to travel. Because also coming to Nepal was considered very dangerous. The weather is hot, there's mosquitoes, malaria, blah, blah, blah. So apparently two friends came from what is now Eastern Bhutan, Tawang in India. Two friends came to Boudha and they made a model of the Boudha Stupa in a vegetable, and some people say it was a radish, but that's not like a European radish, that's a Nepali radish, which is long and thin, so you wonder how they made this thing. And the idea is that by the time they went home, their vegetable had dried out, and this is the explanation for why what they built is slightly different proportions to Boudha today. But you can see these two stupas in Tashiangsi and in Tawang. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Very nice. Are these the only two replicas we
No,
know of?
there are other replicas. So also in Bhutan is the Chemdebji stupa, which is quite old, and much more recently it was built by the Yap So that makes it 20th century is in Punakha, and there are others in Bhutan, and there are also some in Mongolia, but the ones in Mongolia are seem to be differently inspired. They're not inspired so much by people coming to Nepal and seeing this one. They're inspired by the written account because they don't resemble the shape at all. It's inspired by the written account.
What about the replica nearby Ngakchang Shakya Sampo's cave in Yolmo? You know?
I don't know. I haven't been there.
Yeah, there's a small.
Okay, so we haven't yet made the Yolmo connection.
Yeah.
So in our thing, so when he comes, so he's built this thing, and then from his termas, he's also the opener or the revealer of the Bayul of Yolmo, which is why he then becomes retrospectively the first Yolmo Tuku, and why he then stays in Yolmo. So I haven't been to Yolmo, so I presume if there is one, it happened later. Yeah.
And then, how did Ngakchang Shakya Sampo end up being the main Lama of Boudha?
Yeah, so we presume at that time that there was only fields here, and there weren't houses around the stupa as there are now. And even in the old images, the houses are only around the Kora, and the rest of it is fields. So presumably, him and his family built houses to stay here. But if he went back to open the Bayul of Yolmo, it seems that he mostly resided there. And there's another research, I think it was from the 80s, about his lineage who resided in Yolmo. So it seems like a lot of these lamas, not comfortable in the climate of the Kathmandu Valley, and they preferred to stay in the Himal. So the first, second, and third definitely stayed in the Yolmo area, and then around the fifth, I think they lose control, or their lineage starts to peter out. So then, we lead into the Rana period.
Around the fifth, what? I'm sorry?
Around the fifth incarnation.
The
fifth incarnation. Yeah, fifth incarnation. Things start to get a little bit.
So what year would this be? Like 1800s?
Probably, yeah. Probably, yeah. But for that, you have to read Rodseth.
Okay.
For that, you have to read Rodseth. So he researched the Tamangs of the Yolmo area, specifically the Yolmo Tuku's family.
So then, what was happening? Do we know what was happening in the stupa from the time of Ngakchang Shakya Sampo up until the Ranas takeover of Nepal?
So Yolmo Tuku is 16th century. So if we say 5 incarnations, maybe 20 years each, that takes you to 100 years. So that already takes you to the 1800s. And then the Ranas take over from the Shahs or oust the Shahs around, I think, 1857 or 1855, something like that. So when they do that, there are two things going on. One is the incumbents of all the important religious places who were appointed by the Shahs, they're not interested in having them around. So they want to appoint their own people. And that's one thing. But secondly, also, there was, I think it's the third Nepal-Tibet War. So the legend of the Chiniya Lama, who's the current holder of the stupa, the legend of the Chiniya Lama says that there was a Chinese Lama from Sichuan who was, I think, meditating somewhere along the Bagmati near Pashupati. And because the war was going on, people thought he was a spy or whatever it was. And they dragged him in front of the Ranas, and they interrogated him. And what they found out was, okay, no, he's a legit Lama, he's doing his practice, but he speaks different languages. So they engage him as translator. And then in reward for his services, then he gets given control of Boudha Stupa. But if you read like Chiniya Lama histories, it's like, oh, there was nobody before him. They don't talk about the fact that he was taken control from somebody else. So the Yolmo Tukus lost control of the stupa.
Because the Chiniya Lamas were backed by the Ranas.
By the Ranas, yeah.
And then, can you mention something about this war?
Oh, so there were constant wars between Nepal and Tibet. 1855, because it coincided with this Rana takeover from the Shah, there was all sorts of political things going on. I mean, at Swayambhu also, which is also one of my topics, the Bhutanese had control of the main temple, which is in front of the Amitabha shrine on the stupa, and they also lost control temporarily. They were accused, Bhutan was accused of supporting Tibet against Nepal, and they lost control of not just Swayambhu, but a number of other monasteries. And then it was only through various correspondence and appeals to the Ranas, and then later they got back control of Swayambhu.
So is this the war where one of these Sharmapas was also involved there?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I think is it the 6th or the 10th?
I forget which one, but the red
yeah.
stupa, right?
He runs away from. It must be the 10th, right? Because him and his brother-in-law is the Dalai Lama, or is his brother?
Yes. They discontinued the lineage also at that point. So
at that point, they said they couldn't have an incarnation. Yeah.
There's a gap between the.
And he's supposed to have died in Nepal, and I think his stupa is at Swayambhu.
The red stupa next to Ajima shrine, I guess.
Yeah.
So then were the Bhutanese and also the Yolmo Tulkus, they were both in charge also of Swayambhu and Boudha respectively during the transition after the invasion or the unification of Prithvinarayan Shah against the Malas. So between the Malas and Prithvinarayan Shah's coming into power, there was no change in the structure of whoever was taking care of these sites.
So I had never thought of that question. So if we look at the history, let's have a think. So Ngakchang Shakya Zangpo came in the 16th century, or mid 1500s, we guess, because they say the Terma was discovered in 1512. So presumably he came within 20, 30 years of finding it. Prithvinarayan Shah doesn't complete his conquest of the Kathmandu Valley till 1679, so there's a gap. And for the Bhutanese, the history is not 100% clear, but it seems they got control of Swayambhu around the same period. So the traditional Bhutanese legend says they got control before, but we don't have very clear. We don't know the name of the Shah who gave it to them, and we don't know the name of the Lama who acquired it. There is a story of a Lama who came, but he also then left because of pressure from the Gelug. So although it's usually assumed that Bhutan retained control all through that period, his own biography is very clear. He left. And there's no reason to think that Bhutan managed to maintain control after he left.
I see.
But that's a whole other podcast, mate.
Can you tell us a little bit more about these Chiniya Lamas? It seems that the Chiniya Lamas are still alive now.
Yeah. So when the Rana gave control of Boudha to the first Chiniya Lama, at that time we presume then the Boudha area was inhabited by Tamangs, because we know that the house that is now next to the main Chiniya Lama Gompa. So Chiniya Lama's Gompa, we don't want to call it Chiniya Lama's Gompa, we call it Guru Lakang. So the house that originally it's a Lakang, it's built as a temple, but if you look at historic photos, it wasn't a temple, it was just a house. That house and the house next to it, they were definitely under the control of Tamangs. And if I recall, it was a room, they call it the Rumba House, which is one of the clans of the Tamang. So unfortunately, although people have studied Tamangs of the Himal, nobody has studied Tamangs of the Kathmandu Valley, which is the Boudha Tamangs and the Kimdol Tamangs. Nobody has studied those two groups. So I'm guessing, okay? So my guess is then when Ngakchang Shakya Zangpo went and opened Yolmo, that's a whole Tamang ethnic area. And what we have is this concept of Guthi in Nepal, where it's like a society or I don't know what else you could call it. Association, yeah. It's basically a way to support temples by allotting land. And then whatever agriculture produce or whatever other income comes from that land is supposed to go towards the operation of management of the temple. So Boudha's associated Guthi is called the Melamchi Ghyang Guthi, and you still see that today above the Guru Lakang entrance. It says Melamchi Ghyang Guthi, and so that area is inhabited by Tamang. So my guess is then when Yolmo Tuku went, well, Ngakchang Shakya Zangpo went to Yolmo and becomes known as Yolmo Tuku, that community also moves into the area around Boudha, because that's the edifice that's supposed to be maintained by their work. So all their labor, the Melamchi Ghyang Guthi is supposed to maintain this stupa. So we know that when the Ranas appoint Chiniya Lama instead, the house next door was owned by Tamangs, or was resided in by Tamangs, and that Tamang kind of gets pushed out. Initially, he's just kind of, oh, can you give this guy a place to live? But then when this guy, the Chiniya Lama, marries, I think it's the daughter of like the favorite concubine of the Rana, then he kind of de facto takes control of the building. And it's only much, much later that the Guru Lakang gets constructed. And then today, so we're talking about 1857 or something like that. So we're 150 years later. 150 years later, if you say everybody lasts around 20 years, so you're talking seven, 8 incarnations. So one legend says that the first Chiniya Lama didn't stay in Nepal and he went back, but others say no, he stayed. And there are very few actual documents or official documents to show who the incumbents were after that. I think the first 3 or 4, it's pretty clear, and then it gets a little hazy. And if you go to Chiniya Lama's own website today, they claim they're on their 8th. But there are also people who claim, I think the first 2, the first 3, how would you say, their educational achievements were recognized and respected by the community.
So there's been, according to the Chiniya Lama's website,
according to the Chiniya Lama's website, they're on their 8th incarnation. But if you try to go through the history of the names, personally, I tried when I was searching something unrelated, trying to match the names to some documents from the National Archive, I was only able to match 5. And this is all about power and money, so therefore it's not to their advantage to share documents. People will challenge them. There are definitely at least two different factions within the Boudha Tamang community, those who support the present Chiniya Lama and those who don't. And the main criticism is his educational and spiritual attainment. I think the first 3 Chiniya Lamas, people respected them. They had studied and they practiced, and people respected them from that perspective. But the current one, there are definitely some doubts. And yeah, if you can speak Nepali and you can search YouTube, you'll find clips of issues. And there's lots of pettiness also. I mean, I think it was in the late 80s, after Nepal started registering different sites as World Heritage Sites, and they were allocating the different monument zones. Of course, Boudha became one of the World Heritage Site monument zones in the Kathmandu Valley. And one of the requirements from the UN for that is that you should set up a management committee to manage the site in a sustainable way. And so then from that requirement, we've got this Sri Boudha Nath Area Development Committee. The fact that it has a Nath in it just drives me totally nuts, because that's a Gorkhalization anyway. But and it is also part of the whole Nepal government castration of the Guthi system, which has led to decimation of all sorts of cultural activities. But it also meant in Boudha's case that Boudha Stupa itself is now under a para-governmental organization, whereas the Guthi and the Lakang is under Chiniya Lama. So the Chiniya Lama actually now no longer actually has responsibility for the stupa. And we see this tension in a lot of cases. Here we see the tension all the time. The gate gets locked, the padlock gets changed, somebody else's padlock gets sawn off, and a different padlock gets put on. These things are going on all the time. And the most recent petty thing was that because it's a public place and tourists are coming, there should be a public toilet, right? And the public toilet was on the outside, accessed from the outside of
the way to Daratol, right?
Right. but it's in the Chiniya Lama's building. It's in Guru Lakhang, and I don't know if you noticed, for quite a few months now, it's been locked, and actually the whole toilet was smashed up. And now I don't know about from the outside, but now it's only accessible from the inside. So there's no longer a public toilet.
So Chiniya Lama doesn't want people to.
He doesn't want people to be able to pee.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's
So
that
basically,
kind of,
the power struggle at the moment is between this Guthi following Chiniya Lama and the committee, which is backed up by the government.
Yeah, I don't know if you can say even the Guthi followed by the Chiniya Lama, because the Guthi followed by the Chiniya Lama is the Melamchi Ghyang Guthi. And in the Boudha area, as far as I'm aware, they don't have a Guthi space. Whereas the other Tamangs who don't follow him, they have their own Guthi spaces, the Kalyan Guthi. The Kalyan Guthi is extremely active. They do lots of things. Your Nepali is better than mine. Kalyan, friendship,
Kalyan,
friend,
yeah.
good friend, spiritual friend, right? So the Kalyan Guthi does all the things that a normal Guthi would do: births, deaths, and marriages. So if somebody dies, everybody chips in towards helping for the funeral and all the cremation and all the pujas that need to be done. So the Kalyan Guthi is constantly active.
I see them regularly having.
Yeah, there's always stuff
events,
happening in there. Bodge, weddings, all sorts of things are happening. You know, when people get married and relatives from overseas need to come and they need a place, instead of going to a party palace, they have their Guthi space.
By the way, Chiniya Lama built a party palace, I guess.
Yes,
recently,
he did.
Right?
Well, a party palace has been built on his land. I don't know if he manages it, if he but he has loads of. I mean, the whole from Tusal to Tinchuli, Tusal to Peoplebot, was historically all his land. And when we're going to come to it, I think when Mamala has her jatra, today they just go up and down the main road, but they go from the Peoplebot to Tusal. And my presumption is, in the past, they would have done a kora, you know, like a dharma kora of the lands that belong to her. But because now a lot of these routes are blocked, they can't take the cut on the circular route. So they go up to Peoplebot and then they go down to Tusal and come back.
Seems like he still owns a substantial amount of land in that side of the stupa towards
they do, yes,
where the old Chiniya Lama stupas are.
Yeah, and it's not just him personally, it's his entire family.
So it seems that Chiniya Lama had many lady friends, wives, I don't know what you would call them.
Okay, so I just realized we haven't explained Chiniya Lama. So Chiniya Lama is just Nepali for Chinese Lama, right? So it's not his name, it's just a title. I think, like, as we said, the Ranas themselves also had many concubines. We would use the English word concubine, but it doesn't really convey the nature of their relationship. As I understand it, they were closer than what you might get from the concept concubine in English. But because they were not of the appropriate caste, so if you are a Brahmin Chetri, having sexual relations with a non-Brahmin Chetri, that's not okay. And then with a Tamang, you know, alcohol drinking caste, that's not okay. But you read, you can easily read about all the various Tamang, I don't want to use the word mistresses also, I don't know what the right word is, of all these leading, the Shahs also had and the Ranas also had. So it's, and we also see not just at Boudha, but at Swayambhu also, the whole thing was to marry in. If you wanted to cement your power, you had to marry in. So I don't know that he necessarily had more than average, but definitely in order to maintain a hereditary lineage, he had to. He had to have sons. He had to have heirs. Yeah.
So that's why I heard that the originally quite big piece of land was split because different wives each got a share of the land, and they in turn had many children, which in turn split the land even further.
I think that happens throughout Nepal, and you can see that in a lot of the core Newar areas where you know old houses have been split vertically.
Yes.
You know, because sons want to both have claim on the hereditary property, and nobody wants to have the top and the bottom because top is has more privilege than the bottom, so nobody wants to split that way. So they split them vertically, and I think that's normal in a situation where you have limited land.
I see.
But obviously, when you have a lot of family members making claim on the same property, then that also leads to disputes. So, like where we met the other day, was the house next to the current Guru Lakang. So, as I understood it, Guru Lakang, usually there was a residence for the Lama, and so that house is the residence for the Lama. And it's not that old. You can see from the facade, it's only from the Rana period. But even today, that house is kind of in limbo because, as I understand it, there are 7 or 8 different families who have claim on that house. Not that they're necessarily in dispute, but they have shared claim on that house. And so nothing can be done without agreement of all the families. So it's kind of, it's sitting in limbo, which works for me because we use it as a tea shop. Yeah.
I see. So we have, how many Guthis do we have then?
There are at least 4 Guthis. So to me, this says that the Tamang have been in the Boudha area for a long time. They've adopted lots of Newar, what normally would be called Newar ideas or Newar practices. So the Guthi practice is most thoroughly documented amongst the Newars of Kathmandu. But when we see that so Ghyang Guthi is the main one that I'm connected with, but Boudha People Boat also has a Guthi, and Tusal also has a Tamang Guthis. These are Tamang Guthis. There's also one Shakya Guthi, but that's much more recent.
There are 3 Tamang Guthis, but then the fact that there is a Tamang Guthi in itself seems to be unique. Huh? I've only heard Guthis in the context of the Newar communities in Patan, etc.
Yeah, this says to me that this particular group of the Boudha Tamang have been here for a very long time, and that's why I think that when Ngakchang Sakya Zangpo went to Yolmo, and then these guys came down to manage his lands, because he was responsible, and they basically worked for him. So they came down and they managed this area. That's my assumption. But nobody has done a study of the Boudha Tamang. Which is why I kind of...
Which is why...
I was trying to lead you into that, yeah.
But we're waiting for actually you dig in there.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing. I mean, because all this power and money is involved, it's very difficult. I mean, anybody knows if you're doing research in Nepal, power and money is involved with everything. It's very difficult to get clear answers on anything.
Power in the sense of whose...
So... we can see the Chiniya Lamas really benefited in terms of the land that they were awarded in connection with, the stupa. Presumably, all that land previously was under Yolmo Turku management, and they lost it. But it's only the individual houses that were around the stupa, which were resided in by Tamangs. Then they managed to maintain control of those, and then so. The other thing is that it's not just Guthis that the Boudha Tamangs have adopted. There are other typically associated with Newar festivals that they've adopted. So there's Gatimunga, which is again a typically Newari activity. They celebrate that, and Ropine and what is Ropine Jatra, and what's the other one? It comes with Ropine Jatra. Ropine Gai Jatra, which are around the same time. Usually that's associated with not just Newar, but Hindu Newar. The Boudha Tamangs have their own version of it. They also celebrate anybody who has died in that year, but they bring the photo, instead of going to Kathmandu Durbar, they bring the photo of that deceased person to the Kora, and they do Kora with it.
In that case, can we speak of Newarization of the Tamang?
I wouldn't say Newarization because that suggests top down. So like if you go to the Takali areas of Lower Mustang, then they say Sanskritization of Takali. That's Takali wanting to adopt Baun Chetri concepts of caste and naming and religion in order to be accepted. My feeling here, and maybe, I could be completely wrong, of course, is more that they were here and these festivals were being celebrated. So just like today, Dasain is celebrated by the whole of Nepal, whether you're Hindu or not, because it's the national holiday. So if you see the way that Gatimunga is celebrated, Ropanjatra and Lhake is the other one. Boudha Lhake is not the same as Newar Lhake, but there are no other Tamang communities that do Lhake. Only Boudha, as far as I know, only Boudha Tamangs. And it's not a small thing. They have a small, I don't know if they call themselves a Guthi, but they definitely have a small group of young people, and they turn them over. When you get too old for dancing, you get kind of moved on. And if you need young people, if you're going to dance the whole day, you need young people.
Lhake, just so can you describe what Lhake is?
What is
so
Lhake?
people...
So when you try and understand Lhake, there's a Newar story of who the Lhake was. I don't remember the exact details. Do you? There was a demon, or there was a guy who was homeless, and people tried to tell him, you needed to behave. Am I getting my stories mixed up? Or I'm getting my stories mixed up.
You're good.
I'm good. He should behave properly and get a job, and work in people's fields. And he said, no, I don't need to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't believe in your deities and all this kind of thing. And then when he died, his body was there, and they were like, well, you need to. I think I'm mixing up with Gatimunga. And then they were like, so how should we bury him? He didn't believe in the deities. We can't do the cremation rites, but he was a good guy. He protected me when I was being robbed. So the community came together and arranged his cremation, but not by any with any particular religious rites. So these things are. The Boudha Tamang have adopted all of those things, and they won't say that. They'll say this is our tradition, this is our practice. So the Lhake start dancing from Nag Panchami, and they basically dance on and off for a month. And you basically I don't know how you would describe this. People have,
what month is this, by the way?
Nag Panchami. Just a moment. Fortunately, I wrote it down. So around from July, August. So it's basically when it's raining and you can't work in the fields.
Okay.
So
But in a sense, just for people who happen to be in Nepal during that time and they come to Boudha, they will recognize it because they have these scary masks.
Well, I don't know, scary. He's a red demon mask with his tongue sticking out, and then he has yak tails for his hair, and there are different ones, white, red, and black. And the young guys, they come. And they do puja for the masks. It's not just for fun. This is a serious thing. They do the puja for the masks. They take the mask to Ajima, Boudha Ajima, and they do puja for the mask, and they take her blessing before they start any of this. But the first dance starts from Nag Panchami, and they start from one particular household. And again, all the masks are laid out on the roof towards the stupa before they dance. And then, they dance the same route as for Mamala Jatra. They dance down to Boudha People Bod, and they dance all the way to Tusal and all the small little communities in between. They stop at particular households. If people want to make offerings, have lunch, cash offerings, have lunch. The young guys, young people, they want to participate. Little kids, they'll try. It's exhausting, though, to dance for hours and hours and hours. It's an exhausting thing.
I think they get some... drinking inspiration, perhaps.
Not so much. You can't drink too much.
Because there's one festival that perhaps the Newaris, I guess, they drink a lot and they take Ajima out once a year. When is this one? So what's the name also?
So the thing is with Boudha, we should recognize there are at least 4, if not more, identifications of Ajima. Ajima is Newar for grandma. So Tamangs, they call her Mamala, which is also grandma. And then people who want to confuse things might say she's Harati. Then Harati is a particular deity associated with Hindu religion. What is it? Like she eats the guts of kids. She was a demoness roaming around and kidnapping children. And then people complained. And then was it Buddha took her and hid her own child, and then she was like running around looking for her own child, and he said to her, look, this is the pain that you're inflicting on everybody else. Do you realize? And then she realized, and she said, okay, from now I'm going to protect children. So her iconography is that she's eating guts, but she's protecting a child. So it came to be not just here, not just in Boudha, but in other places, that she's a protector of children. people go to her to wish good health on their child, and particularly from like epidemics, smallpox and things like that, which in the past didn't have cures. So that's Mamala, Ajima,
Harati.
Harati, and the other one is from the Guru Rinpoche biographies that he went to the 8 charnel grounds, and typically Boudha is associated with Lundrup Sek, and at Lundrup Sek and all the charnel grounds have a stupa and a mamo, what would you say, a protectress?
Yeah, like a
Protector goddess.
female,
Yeah, but she's not a goddess actually. She's a protector demoness, I guess. So Dudjun Rinpoche wrote a prayer to Mama Pukasi, and Mama Pukasi is the Mama of Lundrup Sek. So there are at least 4, if not more. And then, Jatsima. Some Tibetans, as I understand it, it's mostly Tibetans, identify Mamala with Jatsima. But that, for me, that doesn't work, personally. Jatsima is the founder of the stupa, and Mamala she's a human being, and Mamala is not. Mamala is some kind of protector demoness, stroke now goddess.
So then, we spoke a little bit about the festivity or activities around the stupa, but what about the actual structures around the stupa, the monasteries? Maybe you can share a little bit.
Okay, so if we talk about the one on the north side, which is the one opposite the main gates, one opposite Mamala, then this is Chiniya Lamas. I don't like to say Chiniya Lama, but we say Guru Lakhang, which is Nyingma. And then if we go in a clockwise direction, the first one you come to is Dabzang, 100,000 Buddhists. It's just on the corner.
Yes.
Actually, their main Gompa now is behind, but just on the corner there's a small temple with a big mani wheel, and that's Kagyu. And then if you go in the shortcut, or not the shortcut, the
long cut.
The long cut, the long cut behind there.
There is the Geluk. Oh.
Start again.
I asked you regarding the different temples around the stupa. So you started from the Guru Lakhang, which is associated with the Nyingmapas, next to the Kagyu monastery. Then behind there is a Geluk, and then
the last one is on. So Gelug is on the east side, on the long cut, and then on the west side is Jamchen Lakhang, which is a post-Tibetan diaspora monastery. That Chogi Tizin is the founder, and Chogi Tizin Rinpoche was, I think he was the uncle of the then Mustang Raja. So there was a connection with Nepal anyway. And then after the diaspora, through his connection, family connection with Mustang, and then other connections with Ranas, but actually by then the Shahs had come back. Whether we can say they were really kings is a different thing. I think the story is that one lady offered the land, which is now Jamchen Lakhang, but as you might know, Jamchen Lakhang is quite tight. So their main, it's just the temple, and their main monastic residence is behind.
yes,
Yeah, they have quite a big piece of land, which I presume that they acquired over time. So all 4 schools of Tibetan Buddhism are represented on the Kora.
What about the Jonangs?
They're not in the main 4. In the main 4.
But they're in Parping.
Yeah. But then we'd also ask about Bun, right?
Yeah.
But what was interesting is Samson Ling Gompa had a really interesting study conducted by a lady whose name has completely evaded me. Yale Bentor. She wrote, she did her, I think it was a master's research in the 80s, I'm guessing now, but I can also share that with you, about consecrations, they say Rabne. And for some reason, Samson Ling Gompa, let me go backwards, apologies. Let me go backwards. So what is now called Samson Ling Gompa, which is Gelug under the Dalai Lama, was actually founded by a Mongol Lama. And the Mongol Lama, they just call him Sokpo Lama, but apparently his name was, again, just a title, it's not his real name, Guru Deva Rinpoche, Lobsang Tupten Choki Gyaltsen, established a temple there in 1975. And then with this whole Dorji Shugden thing, he relinquished it and handed it over to the Dalai Lama's management, and he went back to Mongolia. And actually, in Mongolia, he built a replica. I'm not sure if it was in his own time, but maybe his successors built a replica of Boudha. But Samten Ngompa holds during Labab Duchen, which is usually the end of November, a rabne for both Swayambhu and Boudha. They do, I think it's 3 days, 3-day ritual, including fire puja and all sorts of things. And then on the final day, they do rabne. They take the essence in the mirror, and then they offer it back to the stupas. According to Bento, in the past, they used to physically go round and do it and go to Swayambhu. That would have amazed me if they had physically gone to Swayambhu. When they did it during, just after COVID, they did it from their roof. They didn't go out on the Kora. They did it from their roof. They offered both in the direction of Swayambhu and Boudha. And this year, they actually went round with both around Boudha Kora. So that's also a very, it's a very special occasion.
So I noticed that nearby the stupa there is a small pond with a Guru Rinpoche statue. Do you know anything about this site?
So according to the legend, when they were building the stupa, they had to excavate for earth. And this is the hole that was left after excavating for the earth. And then, of course, it filled with water. But there are also other stories that say there are like magical water supply came from there and all these other things. But there was an interesting article, a small research done by a visiting lady from India a few years ago about the water supplies around from kind of Kopan to Pashupati, and how the water courses came down. And then we call it Daratol now. So Dara means tap. So it's the road with the taps. And then they go to this pond, and this pond's name in Tamang is Goilisang. So it's the pond behind, just the pond behind in the backyard. And then and you keep going down. There are still taps, but of course they're no longer fed. Traditionally, they're fed by a water supply. And if you read the terma that Ngakchang Zangpo found, there's also the problem of water in building the stupa, and also in the Newar story, there was a problem of water building the stupa. So in the Tibetan legend, a spring arose. But the spring is actually, today, the spring that they identify is on the south side of the stupa, just inside where we have the main gate, and then there's a door to so that Mani wall is a later addition. It's very clear. We see from the earlier sketches of the stupa don't have the Mani wall. It's a later addition. So inside from the Mani wall, you can see the cover of the pond, and only every 12 years they open it up. I think there's hardly any water coming now, but in the past there used to be water. We can go and visit later.
Yes. So, can you tell us a little bit about the Sanglung Samuha?
Okay, so I don't think they're. I would call them a Guthi, but they don't call themselves a Guthi. It's the group that does the whitewashing and the flag hanging on the stupa. So this is how really I got connected with this community. I was already living here, and in Nepal, and I'd lived in Boudha before. And it wasn't until after it was at the earthquake. I was living in this area, and after the earthquake, I didn't have class. My college got kind of defunct. Welcome to Nepal. And I noticed that they're doing a lot of work, and I recognized the guys, and I went to volunteer. And it was with the previous Samua head, Hakim, boss, I guess you would say, our Hakim, that I got connected. So I said I wanted to help. What can I do? And he's like, yeah, you're a foreigner. What do we do with you? And so I was pushing wheelbarrows and stuff like that, and moving bricks and things. And then slowly it became, we got more and more connected. So they're the group that, if you want to book a whitewashing, or if you want to hang flags, or we call it Namza, where they put the Namza is a Tibetan word. It's a high honorific word for clothes, which you also obviously know. It's the high honorific clothes. So when you offer clothes to the stupa, they use this high honorific word. So on the Boudha Stupa and also in Swayambhu, there are two. There's a lower one and an upper one, a big one and a small one. So when you offer to the stupa, there are many, many combinations you can offer. You can offer just whitewash, you can offer flags, you can offer namza, you can have the eyes repainted, you can have the walls painted. There are many, many different combinations. And they vary from 25,000 to 150,000, depending on your budget. And usually it's not just one person, it's like a group of people or a family or a Dharma community or something, and it's on auspicious days or some day that's important to you, somebody who's passed away or something like that. It's usually something like that. So with the Samua, they are mostly Tamang, but what's interesting to me, and I wish somebody would research it, young man, is that the people who actually climb above the Harmaka, above the dome, who climb above the dome onto the Harmaka and onto the pinnacle, I guess you'd say in English, the 13 bhumis and up into the upper parasol, they're Shrestha.
Sorry,
Get that sneeze out.
I had to sneeze, but it's not coming out.
Is it not coming out?
Good. Keep going.
Is it gone? They're Shrestha, which is interesting. So there's a division of labor. The majority Tamang group do the whitewashing and they do the saffron and all these other things. But to climb up onto the pinnacle, the Tamangs don't go, the Newar Shrestras go. And these Newar Shrestras are also connected, as I understand, with either the Chabil or the Nama Buddha Shrestras, Newars. So there's a whole, between as you mentioned earlier, the three main stupas, the big stupas of the Kathmandu Valley, there are connections between those families.
And then can you tell us a little bit about the Shakya Newars who came to Boudha?
So again, we mentioned earlier that this Kasti Chaitya etymology tries to claim that this was an overnight halt point. So I'm not convinced about it was an overnight halt point because it's too close. But clearly, if you are traveling from the Himal or from Tibet and you're coming towards Kathmandu, you don't want to stay in Kathmandu proper. It's going to be expensive. You have to stay in a proper house. If you just come to the stupa and you can camp around there, there's open fields, you can camp. So when these guys were camping and on their way to Kathmandu, it seems that the Shakya from Patan mostly used to come and camp also and set up little shops and stalls and sell their metalwares mostly to the Tibetans and Himalayans who were passing through. And of course, over the years, instead of just camping, they bought land and then they established themselves. And you can see, people who know on the Kora can see, there are particular houses that belong to, there's one particular Newar family that's quite well known. And the Shakyas have their own Mamala festival. It's the same time as Mamala Jatra, the Tamang Mamala Jatra. It's the same date, but they have their own Mamala who they have in their own Guthi building.
Interesting. Can you tell us, for anybody who is visiting around Kathmandu, in particular times of the year, what's happening around the stupa during the year?
So of course, Losa is important. We have Tamang Losa, which is the Sonam Losa, which is a little earlier than the Gyalpo Losa, which is the one that is shared by the Tibetans. And that one sometimes coincides with Chinese New Year, but not always. Sometimes it's a month differently. Then later on is a Mamala Jatra. So Mamala Jatra is celebrated by the Tamangs. So Mamala Jatra, mostly on the day of Mamala Jatra, they have puja as usual in Mamaga. But in the evening, all hell breaks loose. They have a cut, I guess in English is a palanquin. There's a little thing that they put the statue in, the deity in, and it's on poles. And they put her in there. After finishing the puja, they put her in there, and she gets taken on a drunken riot, is the only way I can express it. Drunken riot all across her lands. So she goes around the stupa, and then she goes out the main gate. She goes up to the people bod and back, and then she goes to Tusal and back, and then she comes around again. And anybody who wants her to stop can request her to stop. And people offer money from their houses, so she'll stop outside particular households, and people can offer money to her. But on the same day in the afternoon, before it all gets a little out of control, with a lot of Chang and Boj, the Shakyas of Boudha also have their jatra, I guess you could call it. They have their own Gutiga, it's towards the Hayat. They do puja for their statue and they bring her to the Mamaga. They put her inside and they do puja for her. And then they also go around the stupa before they take her back. And then they have a Newar Shakya band and all this kind of thing. But also 3 days before that, in the evening, they have a Boj and Bhajan outside the Mamaga. So yeah, my feeling is that when she goes out and she goes to the people bod and goes to Tusal, is the extent of her traditional, what would you say, domain. Then in April, we have Temal Jatra, which is another community who comes down from the hills. They come to Boudha and they go to Swayambhu and then they go to Nagarjun. It's a whole, for them, historically, it's a massive pilgrimage. Jatra means kind of tour, I guess. Pilgrimage, tour, yeah. But it's a significant thing. But obviously today, with people having modern jobs and modern transport, it's usually just restricted to the 3 days. They come to Swayambhu, they go to Boudha, they go to Nagarjun and they do puja. And even at Boudha during Temal Jatra, the whole Kora is full of people doing family pujas. They bring their own lama and other lamas, independent lamas, I guess, set up, and you can come and with your family and request them to do puja for you. In May is Sagadawa, and since the Ranas were influenced by the UN and others to participate in more international events, then the celebration of Buddha Janyati, which is 15th?
I can't remember.
I think it must be the 15th day of Sagadawa is the most important day. And so at Boudha also different groups, different communities bring their Buddha statue and they do Kora. Then in July we mentioned Gatimunga. And Gatimunga, actually interesting, the Tamangs of Boudha have 2 groups that do Gatimunga from 2 different sides. I don't yet know the reason for that, how the 2 groups are split. One from the east side and one from the west. So I usually join the one on the west, which is near Jamchen Lakang. And from Jamchen Lakang, they make their Gatimunga and then they drag him out. But there's also one from the east side. As we mentioned, from Nag Panchami, then there's Lhake for about a month. In August, we have Gunla Ropan Jatra, a Gai Jatra, and anybody who's passed away in the last year, you bring their photo and you do Kora and you wish for them to have a successful rebirth. But the difference here compared to Swayambhu is that the little kids dress up. So this is like a combination of these events. The little kids come with their Gai Jatra headdresses. It's woven straw into like little horns, like their Gai, like cows. And when they leave, before they leave, they put all their little horns on the chaitya opposite at the main gate. So that's kind of a cute little thing. Then finally in November is Labab Duchen, and as I mentioned, then the main thing for Labab Duchen is from Samten Lingompa. But if you're only on the Kora, you probably won't notice it because they just come round, they do Kora and they leave. So unless you're on the bull, you won't notice.
The Gelug Monastery.
From the Gelug Monastery, yeah.
By the way, Sherpa Gumpa, there is also Choma Bumtsok these days.
When do they do that?
Labab Duchen.
Oh, Labab Duchen. So what do they do? Only at Sherpa Gumpa or they come to the stupa?
They just do the Gumpa, but it's just simultaneous.
Yeah.
So are these the main festivities?
These are the main ones, yeah.
Okay. So then maybe you can say a little bit about why you decided to stay in Boudha. What's your experience here?
Yeah, so I'm interested in history. I came to Nepal for work, and then after my contract finished, I decided to stay. And then in order to make my visa, I decided to join a Buddhist history masters, and that Buddhist history masters was interrupted by the earthquake. And then because I had my visa but no classes to attend because of the earthquake, I ended up taking a few classes randomly at Rangjung Yeshi. which is I don't think is the first time I met you, but soon after that. So I was taking random classes there, and then I rejoined masters, but still in history and culture. So I'm interested in history and culture, and if you're in Nepal, it's everywhere. You just have to choose which bits of it you want to be interested in, because you're surrounded by it all the time.
Do you have any honorable mentions
Yeah,
regarding your
my
stay?
main honorable mention would be, I mentioned that after the earthquake, I wanted to volunteer. And honestly, he is the main reason I got so connected with Boudha and the different communities. I met so many people because of him, and I met the Sanglung guys because of him, and I still drink with the Sanglung guys because of him. His name is Mamala Tamang, and he passed away a few years ago, and we need to cut there.
Mm. Okay, so it seems like time is running out. Life is short. So, is there any last remarks you would like to mention?
Just if people are interested in history and cultural things, yeah, Nepal is a fantastic place to come. The main thing is to remember it takes a very long time. There are a lot of underlying influences that we can't possibly understand. People's livelihoods are very fragile, shall we say? Like the guys who do the whitewashing, they're a group, but some of them have only the whitewashing to rely on, and some have other things to rely on. Some have shops, some have property, some don't. On the Kora, they have property on the Kora, and so they get rent and things like that. But some of them don't. So, I mean, there was a case, actually, I don't know if you want to conclude this, but there was a case a few years ago where a guy, a little bit worse for wear for drink, maybe painting started a little bit late, and he fell off the stupa. Don't know if you saw that. So he fell off the stupa, and at the first, when I saw him fall off, I just thought, oh, he just fell off and he's drunk, right? But actually, he broke his leg, which means that he needed medical assistance, and also he couldn't work for quite some time. So this community thing, which used to exist in many other countries, still exists here, where you still have to rely on the whole community for your survival. There's no other way to get through otherwise. You need them. You really do need them. So when you talk to people and you ask them questions, you have to be very careful about how you ask them, and you have to also realize that they're not always going to tell you the truth. Yeah, they're not going to. And I'm not saying that they're doing it on purpose, but all the power and money involved in running a stupa, there's a lot of it involved.
Especially a big stupa.
A big stupa, yeah. And so when Mamala passed away, the power struggle for who would take over, it took quite a long time. And even now, the person who eventually was given to, who I thought was the right person, he then emigrated because his wife is educated and has a job. And so he emigrated as a spouse recently. So then there's another power vacuum. So the young person who it's with now, I don't think he has the respect of the group. He never really worked. He was not seen to be working regularly with them. It's a tenuous situation. And on that down note,
so I will say, I guess, that many people come to Boudha Stupa. It's part of the Kathmandu city tour. I feel like, I don't know, hundreds of people must come every day, right?
Yeah, I think it's. We see even like Nepali tourists who come and they don't know how to circumambulate. They go the wrong way around the stupa, and then there's people who just came for making TikTok and selfies, and they've put a sign now, no TikTok, but most people don't see it. There are also signs for no pets and all the rest of it, and still people come with their dogs and wonder why they get attacked by the local dogs. I think one of the most useful things I read was this Buddhism Observed by Peter Moran, which I think was from the early 80s. Even if it's not entirely valid today, it just reminds you that you walk around here and you see like photos posted on the internet of Boudha Stupa being whitewashed by Tibetans. I don't know any Tibetan who has ever whitewashed the stupa. It's always Tamangs. there are no Tibetans whitewashing the stupa. And reading that paper just makes you remember that there are so many communities, especially now we're having this conversation in the wintertime. How many different communities are here? You know, not just from Nepal, but from Ladakh, from Bhutan, from all sorts of places. They're here on pilgrimage in the wintertime. And people like us won't necessarily recognize them.
I feel we must be here because of the stupa ourselves, personally.
Maybe I was that pig in the previous lifetime, Mamala Jatsima's lifetime.
Yeah, interestingly, whether we recognize it or not, the stupa is some kind of magnetic power.
Absolutely, that I agree with, yeah.
Yeah, we are here somehow because of the stupa. We are recording this here because of the stupa vicinity. So, yep, on that note, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your sharing your knowledge.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. This video is just going to show these glasses going down and then refilling.
Like magic. Orca strong.
Orca strong. It's the only way to get through the day.